We are 13 hours into the trip and have done only 55 miles. Only about 170 to go, people. This is where I sleep. I mean, I could go inside, but radar's not working, and you know, it's kind of nice out here. Also, I'm sleeping across the boat, so when we actually rock this way, the motion is cancelled by you on the sleeping, these bean bags, so they sort of hug you, so it makes it easier to sleep. That's kind of nice. I mean, it didn't get rained on last night, so it's not too bad. But also, if you like this and you sort of get trained, after 20 or 30 minutes, you sort of wake up and then you have a quick look around and then you go back to sleep. So it's not the most accurate, because if you were dead tired, I imagine you could sleep for like a couple of hours and then nothing's on watch. That could be a problem. But I only saw a very, very faint light on the horizon last night, so that's not to say that I shouldn't be always wary, but that's the way it is at the moment. It's better to have two people so you can have proper sleep and have a proper lookout, obviously. But I'm looking forward to this day. It's beautiful fair weather clouds. Not the greatest sunrise, but that's okay. You can't have it all. Calm conditions. Hopefully we'll be in by tomorrow afternoon. I think it's going to be tomorrow night, but I'll try and push for tomorrow afternoon. I suppose the reason why a lot of people don't go out sailing is because they're fearful of you know, being on a small boat in a storm at sea. But I think that's a wrong way of looking at it, because if you're in deep water and you're in a little boat out at sea and the wind is blowing from, say, one direction only, yes, the waves are big, but the chance of you getting in trouble are going to be really quite small, especially compared to walking across the street and flying and taking a train. So I think it's actually unreasonable. Maybe because people think that they're going to be so helpless, but you ought not to think you're helpless anyway, because, look, here's an example. In 1979, there was a race called the Fastnet race. I think I don't know if it's every year. Anyway, a whole bunch of boats went out to race, and like a little mini hurricane, well, maybe it wasn't so mini, came and just demolished the fleet. Now, lots of people left their boats. Well, the boats were found later, almost all of them, and yes, they might have had water in them, but it just goes to show, left to its own devices, a boat which is doing nothing, it's flying a hull, is perfectly fine. It's a cork on water. And so if you were really, really stressed, you could just sit in the boat and just wait it out and lie a hull. I wouldn't say that's the optimum solution, because you'd be sort of beam on and you'd be rocking around. Although if the wind was strong enough, that would be on your mast and that might steady you out a bit. So there's that possibility. But you could actually start doing some proactive things. You could run before the storm. You could have a drogue out the front and just sit to the drogue, or a parachute anchor, or you could run with some with a drogue out the back. So there's lots of options, and you could try all of these things until you thought, oh, hang on, this is getting dangerous. So surely that's going to be more effective than just leaving a boat lying to hull. So, and if you're really stuffed and exhausted, you could just lie hull, and the stats on that are you'll probably survive. You might get your feet wet and you might have to get new carpet, but I don't think that's a rational fear. Ooh, I've got the mainsail luffing. I've got to get to that. Wind's coming a little bit more east, so I'll have to tighten the headies again too, the staysail and the Genoa. This is great. We're probably doing 6.5 knots. There's about half a knot against us, so maybe 6 knots. We should be in there tomorrow afternoon. Bloody great. Okay, trip update. We've done about 60 mile. We ought to have done about 80 mile last night, but we had 3 hours of that dead stuff. I'm just checking at the speed over ground. We're actually doing 6.5 to 7.5, so probably around 7. So maybe we're out of the current, or maybe I just can't judge our movement through the water. It certainly looks like 6.5. But anyway, 7.3. So all things good, even if we average 5 knots from now, we've got to take into consideration the dead zone right at the end. The last 50 miles is going to be awful, and my motor doesn't motor very fast, so that's going to drop to about 3.5 knots. So if we can keep this up for another day, we could be in by daylight tomorrow. But I know it's going to drop today and tonight, just like it did last night. Anyway, it's all good. I couldn't have asked for more beautiful scenery. Or maybe some glaciers, or maybe like an oasis of a deserted island with some naked chicks on there. But apart from that, I couldn't have asked for anything else. Now, there is in hurricanes the very real possibility that the wind will not stay the same direction, and so what you end up having is you have very large swell from one direction, and then you get swell building from the other direction, and you can have these huge triangular waves that are breaking and square waves that break. So these waves add up to each other, and yes, if you're in that tiny little area where it breaks, well, you're going to be, you might be stuffed, but the chances are you being in that spot is pretty small. I still think you'd fare better than walking across the street or traveling by train or car. I think you'd be even safer there. But even then, you know, you can proactively do stuff about that. I mean, if you can see that there are breaking waves and you can see that they're happening and there's some pattern to it, well, you can put up a little bit of a staysail or a stormsail and just run. And when you see the wave building, you just bear away from it. You change direction, and so you can do it that way. I mean, of course, that only lasts for 2/3 of the day, because then it's night time. But, you know, 2/3, that's better than a kick in the pants, people. So basically, the end of the discussion is basically, I think you just ought to do it. And fear be damned. Boiled eggs, excellent boat food or passage food. I didn't make anything large like I did last time. I made, I think, fish, mustard and spaghetti, and after the first night, well, it was already suspect, people. It sort of tasted like, you know, McDonald's special sauce. You know, it's the mayonnaise that's been left out in the sun for too long. It's a bit like that, because I have to turn the fridge off for the night time. So yeah, so I didn't do that again. So I'm just going to have this. I'm going to have veggies and lots of fruit. But it's good. It's all right. The trick is, in wind, trying to get some salt on it. Oh wow, who would have thought? I've shaken the first reef out. Hopefully that'll balance the boat a little bit better, because last night with the Windvane steering, you've got to have the sails, you've got to have the boat balanced, otherwise it's too much for it. And I was sort of chasing my tail But I left it at one reef last night just in case, you know, there was some squalls around. I was tired anyway, so. But today looks fine. We'll continue as long as we can. Literally speaking, it's only put on maybe 0.1 or 0.2 of a knot. But it should balance the rig better, and maybe the South Atlantic Windvane steering will, you know, keep up with it a bit better. Right, papaya. Now some people scrape away the seeds and they throw them in the bin, but the sweetest flesh is around the seeds. And you don't have to chew the seeds because the seeds are quite bitter, so to get the sweetest flesh you just let your mouth do all the work. Now, some might have seen an episode probably a year or more than a year ago. If you ever need to go to the toilet, just chew a few of these seeds. Yes, they're bitter, but you'll be going no problem. Another thing I know about it, I wonder if you can still see it. I had a burn here. I was in a car accident and the airbag exploded. Now the airbag gets super hot and it exhales in certain parts of it, or it breaks, I'm not sure, and it burnt my wrist. The first thing I did, well, you've probably seen this in another episode, I pissed on it and that relieved the pain, yes, believe it or not. And then, because it was a really bad burn, I ate some pawpaw and I left a generous amount of flesh, and I cut out a bit and I stuck it on the burn, and then I wrapped it up, and I didn't unwrap it for like 3 or 4 days, and then I brought it out and there you go. Can you see any marks? You can just see a little bit discoloration. So there you go, worked for me. You do what you like. Similar to passion fruit. I don't know if that's green or blue or aqua, but I call them blue passion fruit. I'll put up the real name here. They're really good. They're not so sour. In fact, this one's a bit overly ripe. It's really quite sweet. They're really good. This one's not tangy at all. Wind's starting to drop, 10 to 12 now, it was 12 to 15, going up to 16 or 17. I don't know, I don't have a whirly gig anymore. Sorry, a wind's transducer. So I'm thinking it's gonna, well, the forecast said it was gonna go east, so we're getting as much east as we can, so when it does go east and drops, hopefully we'll be able to keep up our apparent wind, keep it at 50 degrees, 60 degrees. The swell will actually be, or the remnants of the swell will actually be pushing us along, so we might make some good time still. But I reckon we're heading into this massive cloud, which is the usual, the dead zone, you know, where you get the squalls and the little cells and the storms. You do get the wind going up to 35 knots, sometimes 60 knots, but that's rare. But it's only for 20 minutes, 30 minutes at a time. So I'm enjoying this now. This is good because it's nice and consistent. Soon it's going to be a bit of rubbish. And the way I've done it also is if we've got quite a bit of east, if and when the wind does drop to nothing, well, we're going to come in from the northeast end, which the swell is from the northeast. So instead of motoring beam on, we're going to be coming from the northeast with the swell behind us, so it'll just be pushing us along. So that's the current thought situation. That's the game of chess I'm playing with the weather. Let's hope it works out like that. How good is this Windvane steering? Oh, I love it. Check out the description for more details and also a discount code if you want to buy one. Hello, little birdie. If you come down, I can give you some porridge and some fruit. You coming? Okay, that bird ignores me just like all other females. Jeez. So, it's dropping, but still, we're still doing 5.5. It's great. We're just coming up to container ship alley. 2 have gone through, and because we're going down an angle, we're going to be in this channel for quite a while. So it's going to be a sleepless night, I think, for the next 6 hours. But look at that, we've got our holy light in the sky that's going to provide plenty of light so we can see any squalls coming. We've got every scrap of sail up. Staysail, Genoa and main. So I want to have a bit of forewarning. Is my hair sticking out? So I want to have a bit of forewarning if we get some squall line or something. But so far so good. We might be there in the morning. I shouldn't speak that much because we're going to be aiming, we're sort of going to be a bit east. We might have to go on the other tack, so we might be in by midday or early afternoon. This is one crazy bird. Come and land in here, mate. There's plenty of nesting material right here. In the next episode, things really don't turn out as planned, and the wind is not cooperating at all. But you'll have to wait a day for this next thrilling episode, all on sailing into